Hey y'all, I'm James Wright and welcome to the shop. Today we are going to be going over the reed plane parts. In particular, we're going to be looking at how to install the wedges for underneath the Frog. Let's dive in. Everything I'm covering today also comes in a PDF form, and I'll leave a link to that down below. So first we're going to be looking at the 55 degree. This is a fairly standard Stanley Bailey number 4, and we're going to start by taking the Frog off. Loosen the screws and pull it up. I'm going to set those screws down because we may be using them or we may not. Also, we're going to need to remove the Frog adjustment fork, as that will get in the way of the wedge. We don't need to remove the screw on the back of the body, but if you want to, go for it. Just remember to set those aside in a place you're not going to lose them. I suggest putting them back in the pouch from Reed, and that would be probably the place where you're going to store your wedge so that you always know where they're at. With that out of the way, we can set this in here. Now the 50 degree has this line on here, and if you have that line set up at the back of the body here, it's going to be a 50 degree Frog. If you move it in, you're going to get a higher and higher and higher angle until you get up around 53 degrees or so when it's all the way in. For demonstration's sake right now, I'm actually going to put it in most of the way, so it's probably somewhere around 51, 52 degree. Then we can set the Frog on here, and I'm going to use my old screws. Now the problem is my old screws now aren't long enough to reach all the way down in there. So if I put them on here, they might catch a thread or two, but right now, yeah, they're not going to grab much of anything. So we need something longer than that. And that's why Reed Planes offers these screws. Now these are a good bit longer than they need to be, but you may end up getting away with not having to trim them, or you may have to trim them. So we're going to put this in here, slide this down in, and now we're going to see if these screws will reach all the way down to the bottom or if we have to trim them. Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. And in my case, the holes on this casting are pretty deep, so I can cinch them all the way down, and I don't have to shorten them. They actually fit in there really nicely. Before we tighten this down, we want to make sure it's in the right place. We don't want it slopping from one side to the other. We want it nice and straight. And you can eyeball straight, making sure that it's not twisted one way or the other. You'll see more of the foot on one side than the other. Then you know, maybe you should turn it the other way. So what I like to do is move the Frog until it visually looks like it's lined up with the sole. And then I'm going to tighten these down just a little ways, not much, just enough so that I can still finger wiggle this around, and with a little bit of pressure I can move the Frog around. But I'm going to take the iron and set it into place. Then with my fingers I'm just going to grip right here and hold it back to the Frog. And with my other finger I'm going to push this whole thing forward, and with a little bit of force, just pushing the Frog in from the back, you can slide it forward, and now I have a fairly nice tight closed mouth on there. We can pull this out very carefully, and now I'm going to tighten these down a bit. And I don't want to over tighten these because you can strip out a casting very easily, but I just want to get them about that tight. You don't need to squeeze Frog screws down. There's no reason for them to be incredibly tight. If I have to grip it with the whole hand to turn it, it's too tight. I like to be able to grip it between my thumb and fingers here, and if it slips there, that's where I want it to be. I don't want it any tighter than that. Then we can put the iron back in place, bring in the lever cap, test it, lock it down. And in this case, we got to loosen the screw up a hair. Not much, just enough to pop that down in. And now we can take her for a test drive. Here you can see the tear out left from the plane beforehand. And with now the setup plane, I'm going to take a couple passes on here. And it's starting to get rid of it. So planing against the grain like this, a couple passes, almost gotten rid of all of it. There we go. That's pretty darn pretty. That is almost completely acceptable. In all honesty, that change from just moving up to 55 made it from tear out to, that's actually pretty well passable. But I think I can make it a little bit better with the 55, so let's go ahead and see how we put this in. So we're going to do the exact same thing, taking it all apart. We'll take out this one, but in this case, we need to do some more work in order to get it up at the right angle. We're going to take these machine-made screws and put those into the Frog. I want to make sure I slide this back as far as I can, and we're just going to tweak it down. Again, we don't want to make it really tight, we just want to make it tight enough. Then with that in place, we can put the Frog back on. So now we can put these screws in and test it one more time. We can take our iron, put it in there, and make sure that this all works, because we want to make sure we have enough movement in our mouth. And this is where the problems usually start to come in. This one takes a little more fiddling to work with. So I'm going to put this in here, I'm going to back up the iron, and yeah, my iron isn't sticking out of the mouth. It's actually running into the mouth at the front. So that means I need to move this back even farther. And unfortunately, with my casting, my two holes are actually out of square. One of them is back a little farther, the other one is forward a little farther. So I have a couple choices. Number one, I can file the front of this mouth open so that the screw can slide in a little farther. Or number two, I can take out the washer so that it can move a little bit farther forward. Also, I could take a file and thin out my washer, make it a little bit closer so it can move closer to the front of that slot. I'm going to choose to actually file the washers back a little farther. And this will allow me to move that whole frog seat back a little bit more. So now we can put these screws in and test it one more time. And in this case, that was enough. I now have an opening on the mouth, the iron sticks out, and we are good to take it for a test run. So you can see how the wedge looks when it's fit inside there. Let's see how she does. So here you can see that tiny, tiny bit of tear out left over from the last plane. Let's see if we can get rid of that. And we are down through it. That is gorgeous. Oh, I love that. That's glass smooth. So by just changing the angle of the frog, we can go from tear out planing against the grain to almost all the tear out gone to no tear out left. And that's what the benefit of having a higher angle works. And it's amazing what they can do. Now, every plane body is going to be different. And this one, I had to move everything as back as far as it could. I had to flatten out the washers in order to move it back a little bit farther to get that all the way out. If you can't do that, you can still take out the washers and just put the screw in. If that's still not enough, you can bring a file in and file out the front of this slot so that this can slide back farther. And if that's still not enough, then the next slot is come back here to your frog, stick a rat tail in here and file the front of this slot farther forward. You might be able to get a little bit more wiggle out of it going back. And if it's still not enough, then you come in with a file and you file out the front of your mouth and bring it farther forward. But that's usually the last resort of doing full modification. 99% of the time, you're going to be able to get it in there without affecting the mouth. And most of the time, you're going to get it in there without affecting the frog. I'd say probably about half the time that I've tried it thus far, I've just had to do the screw or the washer. I had one time where I didn't have to do anything at all. The next thing I have to mention is both of these are cast. They are not machine ground. They are cast. And so they're not perfect. They are not dead flat. They have a little bit of bubbles here and there. And some of them may even rock. Yeah, this one's got a little bit of rock in it. That one's got a tiny bit in it. That honestly has not made any difference at all in all of them I've tested. Put them on about a dozen planes, and these have all worked absolutely perfectly. If I were to go through and machine flatten them, it would double the price of these, if not more. So in all honesty, it's really not going to make a functional difference if these are dead flat. They're going to be fit into place, and they're soft enough that they kind of conform to the space. So you don't need to do that. But if it really worries you, it's very, very simple to just take a file and file the face down. And it's very quick because it is a very soft metal. You can get that really nice clean face very quickly with just a file. And really with these, the only place they're touching is right up here. So you're not going to be getting that much connection surface. I know a lot of people out there are really, really picky about the bed surface being absolutely perfectly flat. Then in that case, yes, you can put this on a diamond plate and flatten it out really quickly. It's a very soft metal. You can do that yourself. But everything I've tried in over a dozen planes, you really don't need to do that. The other thing I need to note is that these are designed to fit a Stanley number 4 or number 5. They will not fit a 3, they will not fit a 4.5, they will not fit a 5.5. Due to the screw width, they're designed for a 4 or a 5. In all honesty, 90% of smoothing out there is done with a number 4. We might in the future make a set of these to fit number 3s. If that's something you want, let us know. But really, I haven't seen a huge desire to make those. So yeah, they're designed for a 4 or a 5. We are offering the wedges individually or as a kit because I know a lot of people are just going to want one or the other. The 50 is very simple, very quick and easy to put together. You don't need to fiddle with it that much, and it gets you most of the results you want. The 55, on the other hand, will get you a little bit better results if your work is really, really hard or you have to go against the grain. but it is far more fiddly and it's going to take more time. So it's kind of one of those things of which one do you want. But some of you will want both of them, and we are offering that as a kit. If you have other questions on it or other ideas, let us know in the comments down below. We read through all of them and I answer as many as we can. Also, the links to these are down in the description down below and in the top comment. And if you really want more, you can feel free to send us an email. Emails are on the website where you can purchase these. As always, I want to say a huge thank you to everyone watching, and thank you to those of you who are purchasing these. You are supporting the channel when you do that. You're also supporting Reed Planes, as Jeff is wanting to bring Reed Planes back in and offering them. They are an amazing plane, and we might be seeing those coming on the market sometime. So on that, I think that'll do it. And until next time, have a wonderful day. I'm glad I spelled this one correctly, otherwise I'd have had to put wings on these. Really feathery wings. Frog angels.